Last video, you met Alex, Priya, and Jordan. Alex in New York keeping $22,716 a year. Priya remote in Texas keeping $26,390. Jordan in Denver keeping $31,343. The surprise winner. Here's the question nobody asked in that video. Does this gap last forever? Or is there a specific net worth where it just stops mattering? There is. And it's a lot closer than you think. Once your portfolio crosses it, the entire "which city should I live in" debate becomes background noise compared to what your money is already doing on its own. I'm Kevin. This is Prosperity Levels. Today, the exact two net worth thresholds where geography stops running your financial life and how fast Alex, Priya, and Jordan each actually get there. Quick note, not a financial advisor. This is educational. Talk to a professional for your specific situation. Let's find the number. Remember the gap between Jordan and Alex, $8,627 a year. The entire penalty Alex pays for living in New York instead of Denver. That gap is what everyone in the last video was optimizing around. Here's the question that changes everything. At what net worth does your portfolio generate that same $8,627 a year, all on its own, with zero effort? Using an 8% average annual return, the math is simple. $8,627 divided by 8% equals roughly $108,000. At $108,000 invested, your money alone produces more per year than the entire location penalty Alex pays for living in the most expensive city in the country. This is the first threshold. Call it the geography irrelevant number. Below it, where you live and how much your job costs you genuinely determines your trajectory. Above it, your portfolio is already outrunning the geographic gap every single year, whether you move or not. This doesn't mean location stops mattering completely. It means the argument for optimizing it, the entire premise of the last video, has already been won by compound growth. You're no longer racing the city. The city is racing you and losing. There's a bigger number, and this one changes more than the debate. It changes your options entirely. Take a realistic, modest cost of living, $48,000 a year. Roughly what a careful single person spends on housing, food, transportation, and insurance in a mid-sized American city. Divide that by 8%, $600,000. At $600,000 invested, your portfolio generates $48,000 a year without you working another day. That's not the city stops mattering. That's your job stops being the thing that determines where you can afford to live. This is the real financial independence threshold, and it's dramatically lower than the number most people assume they need. Not $2 million, not $5 million. For someone living reasonably, $600,000 does the job. Below $600,000, you're choosing a city based on what your paycheck can support. Above it, you're choosing a city based on what you actually want: mountains, family, weather, culture, because the paychecks stop being the constraint. Let's run the numbers using exactly what each of them keeps every year, invested at 8% starting from zero. Jordan, saving $31,343 a year, hits the first threshold, $108,000, in just over 3 years. 3 years into that Denver hybrid job. The entire location penalty argument from the last video is already obsolete for Jordan personally. Their portfolio out-earns the gap every year from that point forward. Priya, saving $26,390 a year in Texas, hits that same $108,000 threshold in about 3.5 years. Close behind Jordan, despite the smaller salary, because Texas's zero state tax kept her contribution rate high. Alex, saving $22,716 a year in New York, takes about 4 years and 2 months to hit $108,000. Alex still gets there, just slower, because New York's location penalty is quite literally reducing the amount available to invest each year. Now the bigger number. At $600,000, the gap widens further. Jordan gets there in just over 12 years. Priya, about 13.5 years. Alex, just under 15 years. Notice what happened. The salary gap between them was never really the story. A 3-year head start for Jordan on the first threshold becomes nearly a 3-year head start on financial independence itself. Small annual differences compound into years of your life. And here's the twist that should genuinely surprise you. Once any of them crosses $600,000, the entire conversation from the last video becomes optional for them. Alex could move to Denver at that point, purely because Alex wants to, not because the math demands it anymore. If the math works out this clearly, why does almost nobody stop obsessing over cost of living once they cross these thresholds? A few predictable reasons. First, nobody tells you when you've crossed the line. There's no notification, no milestone email. The habits that got you to $600,000, tracking every location cost, optimizing every tax bracket, don't naturally turn off just because the math stopped requiring them. Second, identity. If you've spent years being the person who moved for the lower cost of living, staying in that mindset after it stops, mattering financially can feel like part of who you are, not just a math problem you already solved. Third, lifestyle creep from the last 2 videos still applies here. As net worth grows, expenses often quietly grow with it, which pushes the $600,000 threshold further away in practice, even as the math above assumes it stays fixed. The habits from earlier in this series, the 50-50th rule, the net worth gate, are exactly what keeps this threshold reachable instead of a moving target. Once you cross the first threshold, one thing changes immediately. Stop optimizing your job search around cost of living arbitrage. It already did its job. From here, optimize for income growth and career trajectory instead, because your portfolio is now covering the geography question on its own. Once you cross the second threshold, 5 real options open up that didn't exist before. 1. Negotiate from a position of true leverage, since you no longer need any specific job to survive. 2. Consider a lower-paying job in a place you actually want to live, since the portfolio covers the gap. 3. Take a sabbatical or a career pivot without the panic that would have existed at 0 net worth. 4. Stop tracking every $50 monthly subscription with the intensity from earlier in this series. The compounding has already outpaced that level of detail. 5. Shift your financial attention from how do I keep more to how do I want to spend the freedom I already built. None of this means stop investing or stop being deliberate. It means the specific battle from the last video, city versus city, salary versus location, has been won by time and compound growth. Continuing to fight it past this point is optimizing a problem that no longer exists. Here's what nobody tells you about the last video's entire comparison. It was never actually about which city wins forever. It was about buying the years it takes to make the comparison stop mattering. Jordan's 3-year advantage in the first video wasn't really about beating Alex and Priya at a game of salaries. It was about reaching the point of irrelevance 3 years sooner. 3 fewer years spent needing to calculate rent, transit passes, and state tax brackets just to decide where to live. That's the real prize in personal finance. Not winning the salary comparison. Buying yourself out of needing to compare it all. If this reframed how you think about the last video, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm people want the full arc of this math, not just a headline salary comparison. 2 thresholds. First, roughly $108,000 invested, where your portfolio alone outgrows the entire geographic penalty from the last video. Second, roughly $600,000 invested, where your portfolio alone covers a modest cost of living anywhere. Jordan crosses both first 3 years, then 12. Priya closed behind, 3.5 years, then 13.5. Alex a little slower, just over 4 years, then just under 15. All 3 get there. The order was decided by where they lived, not by how hard they worked. Take your own current invested net worth, divided by the $108,000 mark, and you'll know exactly how close you are to the point where a single city's cost of living can no longer out-argue your own compound growth. Subscribe for more. Next video, What happens to Alex, Priya, and Jordan's numbers if one of them gets married, and whether a second income changes any of these timelines? This is Kevin. This is Prosperity Levels. I'll see you in the next one.